But first, the bottom row, which is the Beck, Ewers, Moss, Ward, and Sanders row. Those are the 5 college quarterbacks that we could have back-to-back years of 5 first-round pick quarterbacks because I don't see how any of these franchises can not draft a quarterback next year. Every single one of them is going to feel like we have to get a quarterback, so those would be the most likely 5 first-rounders. Next row.
It is so funny, though, because you got the Cleveland Browns there. They're at the bottom tier, okay? They're one of the worst teams in the NFL, according to Nick Wright. And in my video where I kind of called out of all the praise about the Dallas Cowboys beating the Cleveland Browns, everyone tried to say, the Cleveland Browns are a great team, they're a great team, they're a great team. You know, Nick is right, Nick is right. Nick is saying that the Cleveland Browns are a bottom barrel team. That they are, as Bruce says, a literal tomato can. They are one of the worst 5 teams in the NFL and probably bottom 3, I think is what Nick said, okay? That they're one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL. That was what Nick said himself. So do not come at me saying that the Cowboys beating the Browns means anything. That shows how good Dak Prescott is and this or that, because it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
Not bad. Shout out New England.
Yeah, well.
For they moved up.
Sorry, also to add one more thing, same thing with the Tennessee Titans. The fact that he tried to say, oh, the Tennessee Titans, like the Chicago Bears showed that they have a really great defense against one of the worst teams in the NFL. Okay.
After I thought they would be on the bottom the whole time, we saw some things from New England's defense. Jaden running the ball, and they did score 20 points. Denver, despite the fact that Bo Nix was just check down Charlie 40 times, you're on the road in Seattle, tough environment. You saw just a little bit. What were we watching? So this is the most interesting part of week 1, is we know what we see. We don't know why we're seeing.
That's good.
So are the Saints just really good, or is Carolina unspeakably bad? Is Darnold finally the guy that Colin Cowherd has pined for 7 years? Or did Brian Daboll and the Giants just come out totally not ready to play and have their energy sapped by Daniel Jones' performance? Is the Cards offense for real, or is the Bills defense really bad? We don't know yet. And I'm not even being a smartass. Yeah. Week 1, we just have a slice of the pie, so I'm not sure what we were watching. But those teams.
I think that's totally fair. I'm not saying that I'm agreeing with where the rankings are, because I'll wait for all those. But I think in terms of those 3 teams, I think that's totally fair. And it's what I've kind of voiced as well. I think the Minnesota Vikings are for real, and Sam Darnold is going to be significantly better with them. But I did give my caveat when I made that video that they played the Giants, a bottom barrel team. And so I'm consistent. I try my best to be as consistent as possible. I'm not here saying, what about the Vikings? Sam Darnold balled out. He's the greatest player ever. And then, right, that would make me contradicting myself. And so I think it's totally fair to be like, I don't know why we're seeing what we saw. We need more information. And same thing with the Saints, right? Like, they balled out against the Panthers, and it's like, I have to kind of wait and see. Like, the Panthers, are they just that awful, or have the Saints righted this ship? And the Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, like, they're a better team than they have been in years past. They're a better team with Kyler Murray, and I believe that defense will get going to a degree. So I just think that the Cardinals are no longer this like kind of bottom barrel of the team. But in terms of where are they, man, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, they will live and die by Kyler Murray. And so it just depends on kind of, does he stay healthy? Has his game evolved at all? Or is he still the same Kyler Murray that we know of him pre-injury?
Teams could be moving up if it was the former, not the latter for each of them. Minimal margin for error. So all 3 of these teams lost games they had no business losing. And when you do that, whatever your season-long projection was, now you have to add a game to it. So if Cincinnati's like, all right, we're going to need to win 12 games to win this division. Okay, cool. Now you have to win 13 because you're supposed to win the Patriots game.
Yep.
That was one of them. If the Falcons or Jags were like, all right, we're going to need to go 11-6 to win our divisions. Okay, cool. Now you got to go 12-5. Because the Jags had that game won. The Falcons thought that was a game they were going to win, especially when all of a sudden Fields gets listed. So now your margin for error is just so much smaller.
I totally agree with that too. Again, just to emphasize, I'm not saying about where these rankings are, but I agree with like the explanation of those three teams, right? The Falcons losing that game to Pittsburgh was like, that's the game that you're supposed to win. The Bengals versus the Patriots, you're supposed to win that game. I don't know so much about Jacksonville and Miami. Let's see how good Miami ends up. I think that would have always been a tough game week one. I think if anything, you're just lucky that Miami didn't come out significantly stronger. Maybe that's more credit to Jacksonville. You know, who knows? Obviously, I think Trevor Lawrence is a pretty good quarterback. Maybe not as amazing as Nick thinks he is, but I don't think he's, you know, this bust or this scrub either. So I think that's totally fair.
Season concerns confirmed. Every single one of my worries about both of these teams was confirmed in week one.
That's
for
hilarious.
the Eagles. Is the offensive line going to miss Jason Kelce? Yep. Is the defense going to be a disaster for the second straight year? Sure looks like it. Is Jalen Hurts still going to struggle and turn the ball over, make head-scratching plays? Absolutely. To be fair, Saquon way overachieved what I expected. And for the Jets, I mean, are they going to have no offensive game plan? Is Robert Saleh going to have all year, all summer to prepare for going up against the guy who he used to work with and be like, you like to run the ball? Nobody told me that. Is Aaron Rodgers going to look a little statuesque in the pocket? Not in a good way. Yes, yes, yes. Off-season.
Okay. I'm going to talk real fast about the Eagles, and then I'm going to probably emphasize them more in a little bit after all this is going. But this idea that their defense looked bad against clearly a top team in the NFL, and I'm sure the Packers and Jordan Love are going to slide down mainly because of the fact that he's injured right now, but they beat a team above them, okay, according to Nick, and yet somehow that means that they're bad. That they're not good. That shows that there's issues with their defense facing a high-powered offense of Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. Like, it makes no sense. It makes zero sense. I've already gone on my Eagles rants about how pretty much everything Nick has said about Jalen Hurts looking bad and how the offense looks bad and how they miss Kelce and all of this. That offensive line was rated top by by PFF. Okay, I don't know what you want for. What are we talking about? I understand, and did I say Travis Kelce again? I got to stop that. Jason Kelce. I understand losing Jason Kelce was a thing, okay? But the Eagles looked formidable, okay? Jalen Hurts significantly improved against the blitz, okay? Going, 6 for 8 for 90-some yards and a touchdown? Like, what are we talking about? Stop with this nonsense. The defense looks like a disaster for a second year in a row. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. They look way better, more prepared, more physical. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. That was the most high-powered offense in the league last year of the Green Bay Packers for the last 10 games. Okay, they absolutely rolled and dominated the Dallas Cowboys, who Nick thinks is a really good team. So, like, what are we talking about? It's just nonsense. And they're on the same level as the Jets, who looked listless, who had nothing going for them against the 49ers. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
Concerns confirmed. You have our attention. Chargers, Steelers, Colts, Seahawks. For the Chargers, man, Jim Harbaugh really is going to run that damn ball 30 sometimes and just try to lean on you. The Steelers, TJ Watt, Mike Tomlin, Justin Fields not turning the ball over, got to pay attention. Anthony Richardson just throwing it straight out of the Terry Bradshaw playbook of, I might complete 45% of these passes, but they are all going to be bombs on your head. I'm just going to 9 for 18 for 250 yards on the board at any time and terrifying. And I say that with love and complimentary. And then Seattle, Geno looked sharp. The 12s were firing. Mike McDonald got that defense going. You have our attention.
Okay, again. This does not make sense. The Chargers beat the Raiders, a bottom team according to Nick. Okay? The Steelers, they have the attention by beating the Falcons, a team that Nick was never really high on to begin with, thinking that Kirk Cousins is old and questioning that does not make sense. The Colts, that makes sense. They've had my attention, so they've always had my attention because I think they're great. And then the Seattle Seahawks beating Bo Nix and the Broncos, a team that Nick clearly does not think are good. So why do they have your attention then? It doesn't make sense. And you're really going to say the Seattle Seahawks beating the Denver Broncos or the Chargers beating the Raiders or the Steelers beating the Falcons is good enough to put them above teams like the Eagles or even the Jets for that matter? or even above, honestly, heck, the Vikings? Like what? What are we talking about?
Costly week ones. So this is what I mean. The Rams. You got left tackle on the IR for 4 weeks. Puka's on IR for 4 weeks. Steve Avila's on IR for 4 weeks. For Green Bay, obviously, Jordan Love is not on IR, but he's out. The Bucs, 4/5 of their secondary got hurt in one game. So and at least the Bucs at least got a win. The Packers and Rams did it in heartbreaking losses, and so just very, very costly from an injury standpoint. I still think they're all good teams, but that's brutal.
Yeah, again, hilarious because, again, it matters who you play. It matters. That's going to be the common theme. It matters. I agree that the Packers are up there and the Rams are up there, and I understand that the Buccaneers played well, but again, they beat the Commanders, another bottom team that Nick has them. So, why are you so impressed by them? And technically, the Buccaneers beat a better team in the Commanders than the Dallas Cowboys beat in the Browns. And the Buccaneers played a much better game against the Commanders than the Cowboys played against the Browns. And yet, the Cowboys are ranked ahead of them.
Fun but flawed. The Bills are a little too Josh Allen reliant, pardon me. The Dolphins, I still need to know that you can beat good teams in cold weather. The Bears, you do have a young quarterback, and we saw some of those flaws in week one. And the Ravens, I think, have an identity crisis. I think these are 4 good teams. I think these are, at least 3 of them are playoff teams, but I think they are flawed teams. Perfectly positioned. Very good roster, good wins, and week one went well for you, particularly for Houston and Detroit. As far as if you're Houston, your biggest divisional competition, the Jags, had a heartbreaking loss. If you're the Lions, a lot of people think your biggest divisional competition is Green Bay. Their quarterback gets dinged. So you have great rosters. You all won week one. You look good in your excellent running game. Excellent. Trent Williams looked great. Their weapons look great. It's hard to find anywhere they're not excellent. There's maybe one place I think they might not be excellent, but they're excellent almost everywhere. And then at the very top, unbothered, Kansas City Chiefs. How was everybody else this weekend? How were the other, Greg, veteran quarterbacks? What was their, last few days like? Because we know Lamar, tried to do his Mike Allstott, and he ended up, I don't know if we can show it or not. We saw Lamar, there was a lot of that. Josh Allen, he decided he needed to go Superman mode, and now all of a sudden you see the wrap on his wrist. Yeah. Joe Burrow, Wild's on wristwatch with him because he's taking hits like that. What was Patrick doing over the weekend? Let's just see if we. Oh, that's nice. Just chilling. Hanging out in the U.S. Open, drinking some honey deuces with celebrities, watching some tennis. They stay atop the tiers. They're rested and ready. Greg Jennings, that is the week 2 tiers.
Nick?
Yeah.
This might be the worst.
Oh, I thought it was going to be complimentary.
I did too. The worst?
The worst.
What's the problem?
That's
it
hilarious.
I have your Texans high.
Yeah, you do. But it starts with the fun but flawed. And I'm going to point out the Chicago Bears.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you not like great defense?
No, let me speak, please. Because I picked this team to make the playoffs, as you did. Well, you accelerated
the best
them to
record in the
Super Bowl.
league.
But when you look at the way that they played on Sunday, how different is it than what the Steelers did? And you have the Steelers much lower than them. And the Steelers played a more formidable opponent in the Falcons.
We think.
Well, you have them on the tiers higher than Tennessee. Tennessee is considered the worst team as your tiers are projected
Exactly.
right
The
now.
worst team. They're on the bottom row. They're one of
Look,
the
the Bears. What we saw with the Chicago Bears, you have to slowly progress them up. You can't start them this high.
I dropped them.
No,
they were higher. I had to drop them. You weren't here last week.
Oh my goodness.
They were higher.
What are we really doing?
What do you mean? What are we
doing? Caleb, look, I'm excited about what he has the potential to be. He's not there yet. Clearly, they need an identity crisis to be resolved on offense because he's not going to just roll out and just throw the ball 30, 40 times and be magical like we saw in the preseason. Eberflus, what he needs to check is what they're doing to support the young man and run the ball a little bit more, get more than 11 first downs, average more than 2.8 yards on offense. Like, do something more so that we can see more. But for right now, to have them fun but flawed, yeah, what's fun about them?
Well, their defense and special teams. Right. I mean, what do you mean?
Who watches?
And a block punt touchdown.
wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, raise your hand if you're on a team this week that scored on defense and on special teams.
Raise your hand.
That's only Chicago Bears hands up.
No, raise your hand if you watch the Chicago Bears to see defense and special teams.
Literally, that's the only reason anyone's watched them for 70 years. What are you talking about? So, monsters of the Midway. I mean, what do we mean?
This is terrible, man.
It's not terrible.
The Bears cannot be this high on
well,
tiers.
All right. Well, it's not the standings, but they are tied for the best record in all of football. I think the offense, if there's any offense you expect to get better, it's the one with the new offensive coordinator, a rookie star receiver, and a rookie quarterback. So, yeah, give me a break.
Well done, Greg. I'm only going to focus on one team, but I'd be remiss, as I said yesterday, if I didn't mention the Eagles. Look, Jalen Hurts has to play better, but the funk is gone. Saquon Barkley was fantastic, so the Eagles should be up. Now, the team I'm focusing on, the Ravens, fun but flawed. The Ravens, Nick, I'm going to tell you exactly how high I want them. I want them right between the Chiefs and the Niners.
I buy that.
They are the second best team in football. I thought, and I meant to say this Friday, but I didn't. I thought we were watching on Thursday the two best teams in football. And then after seeing all the teams play this weekend, I feel stronger about that. They went into the Chiefs' house, and no, they did not kick up their feet.
No.
But they made a little noise. They caused a bit of a commotion. They were not easy guests in that house. They literally.
All right, this clip gets cut off, so we're not going to be able to listen to the rest of his rant. I apologize. But I agree. I honestly agree with a lot of what Brew is saying there, even where, after you see all these games, I think it's fair to say that the Ravens are a better team than maybe people even realized, especially going up against the Chiefs. And it is funny to say that the Dallas Cowboys are better than the Ravens, or that the Ravens are on the same level of the Bears and the Dolphins, when again the Cowboys beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. All right. The Miami Dolphins sneaked by the Jaguars. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And they were within one score. They were inches away from tying the game. And I ripped the Ravens. I ripped them. And I ripped Lamar Jackson. I called them out for their issues. But it is against the Kansas City Chiefs, week 1, and yet they did hold their own. They absolutely did. And the fact that they're now that low relative to these other teams, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. This whole list is insane. I love that Greg Jennings was like, this is the worst. This is the worst I've ever seen, because it is. It is. I mean, it's like you're gonna put the Dallas Cowboys ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, ahead of the Buffalo Bills. It just doesn't make sense up against the Green Bay Packers, against the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wouldn't even do that. Against the Rams, it's like, what? No way. Against the Colts, against the Eagles. Oh my God, that honestly is genuinely hilarious to me and absolutely absurd. And no, I don't think that the Chiefs are automatically head and shoulders above the 49ers. I think that you could put them in the same tier. Absolutely. There's nothing that we saw this over week 1 that shows that the Chiefs are just this dominant best team. I don't see it that either. And listen, I mean, it's not the worst thing. I'm not saying, oh my God, I can't believe he has the Chiefs number one. I mean, like, they are indeed the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. Like, that alone is already going to put you better than 16 of those teams already, right? Even if you have no other players. So it goes without saying. And I do think the Chiefs deserve to be considered to be the team to beat, considering who they have been, obviously, for years. They are a dynasty, but I just wouldn't put that there. And I would not put the Colts or the Texans in the same category as the Cowboys. The Texans are a better team than the Dallas Cowboys. Okay? CJ Stroud is a beast. CJ Stroud is a beast. Let me say it one more time. CJ Stroud is an absolute beast. And he doesn't shrink in big moments like Dak Prescott does. Okay? They have better coaches, better coordinators, the Texans, better players, better weapons. They played a better team in the Colts, and they won that game. They are a better team than the Dallas Cowboys, without a doubt. And I do think, and I think the Lions are also a top team, but it's like, and I do confess, it's a little bit harder to figure out who the Lions are because the Rams were banged up. It was a close game, went to overtime. Like again, it takes time. I think what Nick said was pretty accurate. I think in his previous segment where he was like, we know what we're seeing, but we don't know why. Actually, it might have been this segment. I record so much in one day, I honestly forget. Where he's like, we know what we're seeing, but we don't know why. I think that's actually very accurate, and I actually wholeheartedly agree with that statement. So it's difficult to sometimes make some of this sense, but I just don't know how you can watch some of these games and think that this is the rankings is hilarious. You guys know I'm harping on the Eagles because the Eagles technically beat the best team relative to their rankings, and yet the Eagles are somehow lower, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. You have teams that lost who are above the Eagles or beat clearly inferior teams, just snuck on by, like the Seattle Seahawks, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and yet you're gonna have them above. Like it just doesn't. It really doesn't make sense, and it's definitely done on purpose. And so kudos to you. But yeah, this whole list is just insane, and it's so messy that it's hard to go through. Honestly, like it's hard for me now just to kind of be like, this is where I think these teams should be. It's just too hard. I had my one list before, but that was in reference to Colin's herd hierarchy, where I just took like the 10 teams that he had and where he rearranged them. And so, like, listen, I would put if we want to be as conservative as possible with rankings, I think it's fair to put the Chiefs and the 49ers in their own category, right? I together in that tier. And I'm going through this very quickly, so don't hold my feet to the fire for this. And then I would put genuinely the Texans, the Lions, the Ravens, the Packers, and the Eagles all in that next tier. I think those teams are more resilient, more experienced, and have a straighter path forward to to winning it all and winning the Super Bowl. And then there's some of these other teams that I think have a little bit more stronger question marks surrounding them, like the Buffalo Bills. Where am I? The Miami Dolphins, the Rams, the Buccaneers, and trying to think if I'm missing any other teams. I'm trying to do this. And the Jets, actually. And then that's that. And then the next category for me is when you now really kind of get some of these teams where you're like, I don't really know. They have some great players, great quarterback, great coaches, but I don't know. We got to just wait. We got to just see what's going to happen to them. And that's going to be the Chargers, the Colts, the Jets, and I think that's the gist of it. I'm trying to think if I'm missing any other teams. I'm going to try to figure out maybe a little bit better way to go about it. Maybe next time beforehand, I'll just make my own tiers. But it's just hard because I need to see what his tiers are to kind of mix and match. But I think for the most part, that's how I see it. And then I would put some of these other teams where you're like, yeah, they can be some trouble. They can make some noise. Maybe they could catch fire. Who really knows? And that's where it's going to be like the Steelers, the Falcons, the Saints. And I should elevate also, as I said earlier in the clip, the the Minnesota Vikings, right? I think they're also kind of one of those teams where it's just like, I don't really know what to make sense of. I loved what I see. I'm excited, but they played the worst, one of the worst teams in the NFL. So we just kind of have to wait and see. But yeah, man, this is definitely a list. This is definitely a list. I don't even, I think I said my piece, honestly. I just, wow. We hit the ground running of these week 1 Knicks tiers. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What on earth do you guys think about these tiers? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.